Hello and good morning to this wonderful, at least on my side, kind of snowy holiday day. I'm wearing my plaid flannel shirt, getting in the mood. And luckily, and by accident, we have episode 24. So it's maybe not the last door on your Christmas calendar, but it's at least the last door for this community meeting in this year. On the 21st, I guess everybody's already out and about. So this is the last meeting for today, the last chance to having great question and answers after our, whoops, somebody's joining. Let me admit. And good morning, Nasim.
Morning.
And we have a demo going on and Tom is getting some updates here. My announcement were last episode for this year. And I will, if this is okay, hand over to Patrick.
Yes, thank you and welcome. So today we're going to be talking about the RBAC backend plugin, starting with Backstage Permission Framework, which offers control over entity level access, enabling administrators to define granular permissions for viewing, editing, and managing resources, with seamless integration with identity providers to ensure a flexible, extensible, and declarative approach to access management within the platform. Our RBAC plugin takes this approach and enhances it to use role-based access control, allowing an administrator the opportunity to assign roles to users and groups, and those roles to permissions. One thing to note is that RBAC plugin utilizes the permissions defined by the various plugins that are installed in your RHDA in your Backstage instance. If you encounter an area that is lacking in access control for a particular plugin, make sure that that plugin implements the permission that you would like to have according to the Backstage Permission Framework. Additional information can be found in the link provided in the notes. Powered by Casbin, an open source access control library, which empowers our plugin to provide granular control over the embedded permissions, enabling an even more flexible approach to access management within Backstage. With a deny by default approach, this ensures a proactive and robust security posture, allowing only explicitly granted permissions and safeguarding your Backstage environment against unauthorized access from the start of enablement. Our RBAC plugin also offers a no-code solution, meaning permission management no longer requires the need of extensive coding and technical expertise. Administrators can effortlessly configure and manage permissions from various Backstage plugins. Finally, the RBAC plugin facilitates the ability to effortlessly sideload permission policies with the use of CSV files. Enhance the simplicity of your permission management within Backstage by easily importing and managing access configurations. All right, so let me share my screen if that's all right, Thorsten.
You're muted, Thor.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. The stage is for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, is everyone able to see it?
Yes, I am. And I hope the
Awesome.
others too.
Yes.
All right, some prerequisites. So this demo is assuming that you have a Backstage instance available and that you have the RBAC backend plugin installed with the service-to-service authentication set up. For more information on adding and configuring, consult the README for the RBAC backend plugin. There is a link provided in the community agenda. Also, an identity provider is set up and configured. In this case, I will be using GitHub. Ensure that a user can be mapped to is included in your Backstage catalog. Here we can see that I'm importing my user. And we also want to ensure that we have components that have been added to the software catalog. This is so that we can demo the default deny by default and start seeing stuff as we start gaining more access. Here I'm adding some various components. Finally, we want to ensure that the permission framework is enabled. So we're going to start our instance. Oops. There we go. Let this come up. Sorry. Fix this right quick. I apologize, guys.
No worries. That's why we love live demos and I appreciate them.
Yeah.
Morning, Abdul. We're just doing a live demo, so we are fixing some things right now.
All right. So now, as we can see, that there is nothing within the catalog. This is thanks to our deny by default approach. You will also notice that we are unable to register existing components to the catalog. Notice that the register existing components button is missing. Now we will take the first steps into configuring the RBAC plugin to allow access to various parts of the catalog. So for the first step, we're going to add an RBAC policy CSV file. We're going to include some permissions. The first thing that I have is a role that I'm going to set up, which is called basic catalog, and I'm assigning my user to it. And then I'm assigning this basic catalog role to catalog entity read and catalog entity create. Now we need to update our app config.
Patrick, would you like to wait with questions to the end of the demo or answer questions in line?
We can wait till after. That's fine with everyone else. And we are going to restart our instance. Now, I do have Alex on the call with me as well. He has helped contribute to the RBAC plugin, so he can help field some questions if he doesn't have a problem with that. You can add those to the chat. All right, signing in again, we can now see that the catalog has been filled with some of our components. However, when we go to register a new existing component, we see that we still have a not allowed error. This will be addressed in our next part of the demo, where we will be adding ourselves as an admin user and accessing the REST API. So first, we want to update the app config to add ourselves as an admin. Restart our backstage instance. Now, one thing to note, the endpoints of the RBAC plugin are protected just like everything else within Backstage now that we have enabled the permission framework. This means that we will need to include an authorization header with a bearer token generated by Backstage in our calls to the plugin. To get our token, we can inspect the web page. Let me refresh. We can inspect the web page, navigate to the network tab, and look for any network calls that includes entity facets. And as you can see, here is our bearer token. We want to copy that. And export it to the terminal. Is everyone able to see my terminal fairly well? Do I need to increase the size a little bit? Now, with the token saved, we can begin making calls to the RBAC API using curl commands. With our first command, it will be used to create a role and assign it to my user. Here you can see my user is being assigned to a new role called curl test, and that we have a 201 created. And then we're going to use a second command to give us access to the permission catalog location.create. And once again, we see a 201 created. Finally, we can navigate back to our Backstage instance, hit create, register, and now we should be able to register and view our new component within the catalog. Now, one thing to note, there are some known issues that we're currently working with. And so here are some of those known issues, a few bugs that are currently being worked on, as well as an issue being tracked for the permission policy CRUD, only having the ability to create one permission at a time. We also have a roadmap available, which is here, and some items that we plan on working on in the near future is audit logging, where we will capture basic information for the RBAC admin. This will include description information, last modified date, and last modified by. We also plan to enhance the permission policy CRUD. There's work currently already underway so that we can now handle multiple permission policies at a time. And finally, there is a UI coming soon. So you will not have to worry about curl commands for much longer. Also included here is some resources. This is also included in the community notes. And this just points to various information on different aspects of the RBAC backend plugin, along with the permission framework and adding new permissions to Backstage. And here we can see the API specs. This gives a basic requirements and the expected responses that you should get from each of these. And also we have some known permissions. These are permissions that we have gone through and tested to look for various requirements that they might have within Backstage. Mainly this pertains to the front end, but there are some where you need one and another. In this case, in our demo, we needed both catalog.entity.create and catalog.location.create just to be able to register existing components within Backstage. This also includes information on best practices for defining permissions within our RBAC backend plugin. Now that we've covered the RBAC backend plugin, I'm going to open the floor to any questions, comments, and concerns you may have. Yes, Jason.
So in the demo, I think in the CSV file, you essentially created a group for your user. Is that correct?
Yes.
In the first line?
Yes, correct. So with the with Casbim, which is what we're using for our RBAC backend plugin, they use grouping policies and policies to define permissions and roles. So the G is an indicator of a grouping policy within Casbim.
Okay, but if I was using an org data sync from, let's say, Keycloak or something, right? Obviously, the groups are already going to be created and assigned to the user, so that step wouldn't be needed, correct?
I would say that it would be, unless that those users that are being imported from Keycloak are also going to be in a format that Casbin can pick up.
So
Makes some sense.
sort of. I mean, most customers have all their data in LDAP or AD, right? So they're not going to want to create a CSV file that recreates all the users and groups. Because the source of truth is AD or LDAP, right?
Right.
So how do we utilize that source of truth then, as opposed to redefining it in that CSV file?
That can be something that we can look into later on down the road. Currently, we don't have any mechanisms in place within the RBAC plugin to reach out to, let's say, Keycloak to retrieve roles and groups and users and apply those within the RBAC plugin itself.
But if the entity's in Backstage, right, via the org data sync, so it's created my users and groups and assigned them, shouldn't that be enough?
Not necessarily, because the roles are RBAC plugin specific. So creating a role, in this case, role default catalog user, this is something that is RBAC plugin specific. So it's not something that Backstage is aware of or has any knowledge of.
Okay. We're going to get a ton of pushback from customers if they have to do both.
Let me quickly jump in. The way how this works is the same as the policy or permission engine we use, for example, in Argo CD. There's no need to redefine user groups. You need to create roles, and the roles are not in any source of truth. So once you import groups, once you import users into Backstage catalog as entities, either from Keycloak or LDAP, that is being the source of truth, you need to create the role binding for them, which what this CSV line stands for. It's attaching a user or a group to a certain role. So this is the mapping that is being created on that line. And like, for example, if I share my screen, is it this window? Let me quickly check. Yep. So what we're doing in the policy file, we are saying this group is attached to this role, and this role has this policy defined. So this is a mapping you need to create in the policy or in the RBAC engine. This is nothing that can come from the IDM source of truth. That's why it's a RBAC engine. So those user groups or users or groups are not created for the RBAC only. These come from Backstage catalog. These are Backstage catalog entities. You're not redefining who's the group member, who's a user, and how a user is defined. Does that answer your question, Jason?
It helps, yeah. So they're not redefining those mappings, which is good. But sometimes there's also roles that are created via, like the OIDC token and stuff that could potentially be reused too.
How does that help you with Backstage permissions? Because you need to attach a role to permissions that Backstage can understand. Right? We're talking about internal Backstage permissions, not when interfacing with third-party systems.
Well, as far as the permission, whether or not you can read like an entity or something, sure, I get that. That has to be mapped to something, right? Whether it's a group. I guess what I'm trying to prevent is having to define that role, because typically roles or groups are already taken care of in the IDM for most organizations, right? And then what those roles and groups can do inside of Backstage, sure, that needs to be in this file, right?
Yeah.
But creating those roles or groups like Patrick did, I think is reinventing the wheel there.
We may need some additional discussion on this topic, because I'm not sure I fully understand the problem here, because the role is Backstage specific, right? So in this case, you have no way of importing a role, and the same goes with anybody's using this format of policy file. So, for example, the same way as the example I've just mentioned, the Argo CD is using the same format of permissions and policies. So we're following the same pattern as this other CNCF project.
Okay, maybe I'm missing something then. I'll read through this some more, and if I have questions, I'll reach out.
Okay.
Jay had his hand raised. Yeah.
No, I think what I was talking about, Tom, is the same thing what you tried to describe. So basically, users in a group can come through the catalog if it's imported, and all a person needs to do, or the end user customers, just adding one admin to that particular role can add multiple or import a lot of things, be it through UI or through CSV, whatever way they want to have it persisted. So basically, all they need to do is link the permission policies to the role. Nothing to do with users in group.
Yeah, maybe that makes more sense to me then. Okay.
Sorry. Also, I think that role provides for you access to Backstage permissions. That's something specific for Backstage UI and Backstage resources. So I don't think that there is relation between some external roles in the IBM, because I think that some external roles has another meaning, not Backstage resources. That's why it makes sense to create for each your case Backstage role and provide permissions for some users to have access to Backstage resources. I don't see relation to the IBM specific roles.
Well, I see a relation there. I see how it matters, especially in a developer hub case or developer portal case, where your primary use case is basically to aggregate data from third-party systems and interface with third-party systems. So if I say I want to give everybody right to reading this type of entities, it may also I may also mean by that I want everybody to give access to, I don't know, view security insights from GitHub repositories. I want them to be able to access the Kubernetes namespace to view the pods. I want them to be able to access the security scans aggregates from SNCC or wherever. So it can also mean, like from a user point of view, having a role to read catalog entities can also mean I want to get access to all this information from the third-party systems, which in this case is a role and role binding that comes from an external system, and Backstage is essentially not concerned with how this is implemented or if the user has the access or doesn't. Backstage doesn't need to know that. but from the user point of view, it's kind of mashed together into a single permission that I'm viewing a catalog entity and I want it all. I don't want just a partial there. So it can be a thing that we either need to better explain or account for in some way. Is that the use case, Jason, that you also had in mind?
Yeah, I think it's starting to become more clear now that we're talking about this a little bit more. But like I said, I'll read through some of that some more, and if I have some more questions, I'll reach out. I did have another question on like the architecture. So the CSV file gets basically fed into a database, is that right? And the database is the source of truth?
Correct.
And then if you use the API, that's just updating the database, not the CSV?
Correct.
So how do you keep the two in sync?
We're actually working on an issue along that as well. I believe that I had it up in the links of known issues. Yes, CSV repopulates database whenever there is a server restart, and policy changes require server restart. We're actually currently working on solving that issue right now.
Okay, so currently, if I create the CSV and then use the API and then modify the CSV, it's going to overwrite what I did with the API. Is that correct?
No, what ends up happening is it's going to duplicate permissions within the database.
Okay. Okay.
Yep.
So your best bet is to stick with one or the other. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, for now, until we get the updates to solve that problem.
Okay. And then once you have like the UI, is the file going to go away?
I believe so. I believe the UI, it will still keep support for the file just as it's already there. But I believe with the UI, it's going to have better access to defining multiple permissions in a single call.
The only downside to that, I would say, would be you can't use like a declarative like GitOps approach.
Precisely for that, the file is staying. Yes.
Yeah, I think
we need to support GitOps scenarios.
Right. Yep. Yeah. I think most customers would want that.
Yes, precisely.
Especially when you're talking about larger ones with a ton of different roles that they need to define. Doing it through a UI is going to be cumbersome.
And the auditability of a GitOps tracked policy file is
right.
much better. So,
yep. Yeah. Agreed. Yep.
So do we have some more questions for Patrick before we go on? I think this is a no. And then I'm saying, thank you, Patrick, for this really detailed and well-documented presentation and your work on this plugin. Highly appreciate it. I think we all, yes, thanks Tom also for clipping in live. Why not this? Awesome. So then back to the agenda. And thank you again, Patrick. That was great. So we should see now. Thanks, Patrick. Yes, go ahead. And good luck for the next one. Next topic today is Tom. We have some updates for you from your side.
That's me.
That's you. Look at
Good.
this.
So I wanted to share a short update on the dynamic front-end plugins according to our upstream efforts. Last week, unfortunately, we don't have any recordings of it because of some recording issues in the upstream community, or at least available at this point. In the adoption SIG, David demoed a full end-to-end flow for dynamic plugins installation and flow. I've demoed how we envision front-end plugins to work, essentially the same stuff that we showed on the last community call here or the previous one. So how we basically extend the UI in 5 different ways. You can find all the documentation to that in here. There we go. So if you want to recap on that, that's the README. And when it comes to our upstream effort, we get a bit of an excitement, and people did like our demos and our presentations, or at least saw the potential in that use case. So we resurrected the working group for declarative integration and are trying to forward that with some technical discussions how to implement our front-end plugins on top of the declarative integration. So if you want to be part of those meetings, there's this Discord message and channel room, whatever it's called on Discord, declarative integration room, where we vote when we want to meet next week to get going and get cracking on the technical issues, how to get this into upstream and how to basically take our solution and move it to rebase it on top of the declarative integration and move it to an upstream consumable dynamic plugin assets or ecosystem. So in that sense, I think we're on a pretty good track of defining the new standard for Backstage plugins asset type format. So I think with this, we can claim that Janus was successful in shaping Backstage upstream in some way. We already started with David's backend plugins contributions, which are already in upstream, and now we need to get the rest in there for the front end. So that's a bit of a short update on that. We're continuing. The core of the message is we're continuing with the upstreaming, trying to push the dynamic front-end plugins into upstream, and we're committed to get them in there. So that was my update, and I can confidently say that we won't make it happen in upstream this year, which I can probably use as a segue into the announcement that Tor made at the beginning of the call, and I think it's worth reiterating that. Tor, do you want to do that?
Sorry, what was the last word? I apologize.
Okay,
I was just writing the notes.
so I was just trying to come up with a clever segue into telling people this is the last community call this year. It wasn't as clever as as I thought, but okay. David.
Yes, just a word after what you said on front-end plugins, that also on the back-end plugins, the side, the process of moving to upstream already started by reintegrating some of the workarounds or some of the taking lessons of some of the problems that we had to face on the Janus side. I'm just posting in the chat Janus Epic that started capturing in GitHub, that started capturing the various steps that should be still done in order to move the backend dynamic plugins ecosystem upstream as well. Here things are maybe a bit more advanced because there is not the unknown of the declarative UI work state. So mainly just a number of things to fix, follow up on the upstream Backstage repository to have things settle in the upstream Backstage community. But that's on the way and should be, I don't foresee any problem or risk in this convergence of the dynamic backend plugins work upstream. Just to add these words on the backend side.
Thank you. And then I'm taking the segue now. No, I'm not yet. Maybe there are some other questions, off-topic things, or how do we call it? Open forum. Anything that somebody has to add, wants to add, needs to announce? Okay, but then I can take the role over to the next year. So thanks, Tom, for announcing it that not this year. So that also makes, we take this as an excuse not to have the next meeting. And the next meeting then will be in the new year. If I'm looking at the calendar right, it would be the 4th. I don't know exactly how many people will be there, but we're still making it. Otherwise, we're recording it. And until then, if you got bored or you miss us, go to the community calendar link and put it up in your calendar to know when we're going on or what the next meeting is. Join the Google group, and for sure follow on the Slack invite. And if it gets boring during the days, then check out the old recordings on our Janus community YouTube channel. Until then, I hope you all stay healthy, happy, contributing, and happy holidays, happy end of the year recharge, whatever you like to call it, and see you fresh and, depending where you are, cold like me in snow here in the next year. Thanks for everybody. Thanks for this wonderful year, and thanks for everybody contributing, helping, showing up, asking these questions. I always enjoy this meeting and can't wait for the next year.
Thank you, Dar.
Bye bye.
Take care, everybody.
See you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you.